Chair, it's 1 o'clock. We can start.
Thank you, Wasima. My watch still says 12:59, but maybe it's my computer. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Petitions Committee meeting. My name is Gillian Postman, and I chair the Petitions Committee. I'm now going to ask that all members online please introduce themselves. And then after the members have introduced themselves, if we could also ask our guests to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Wendy Philander, member of this committee.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairperson. Khalid Sayed, member of this committee, and I'm also just extending an apology for member Kama. He's had to go to the doctor for something. He should be late if he does come. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. Regan Allen, member of the committee.
Thank you very much. Can we now ask that our guests introduce themselves as well? Can we start with the petitioner, Mr. Jacobs?
Ja. Goeiemôre almal. Al die eerbare gaste. Commissie. Goeiemôre. Harry Jacobs van Grootbrakkewe.
Goeiemôre and welcome, meneer. Welcome to our committee. Can we also ask the representatives from the commission to introduce themselves?
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, honourable members. My name is Wayne Alexander, Western Cape Restitution. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Smith from the Commission.
Thank you very much. Both of you, please feel welcome. Do we have any other participants on the group that needs to introduce themselves? Okay, I also want to extend a welcome to our Procedural Officer, Ms. Wasima Hassan Musa, and I want to upfront thank Ms. Musa for her work in putting this committee together. And thank you very much to our IT team for also enabling us to have this meeting virtually. I suspect we are also joined by members of the media. I know I saw one of the Cape Times journalists here as well, Ms. Lepule. Members, just to remind you of the cardinal rules of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and online conferencing. All participants should at all times be muted unless they have been given permission to speak. If members would like to make points of order, you're welcome to use the chat function, or you could use the raise your hand function. Please also, if you do interject, please introduce yourself by just identifying who you are so I know. And you are welcome to use your video and the microphone when you speak to us. If you don't want to switch your video on, that's fine as well. If there are any presentations, the presenter will also just share the presentation. Wasima, may I ask, are there any apologies besides Member Kama perhaps joining us late?
No, I have received nothing else, Chair.
Perfect. Members, today we are dealing with the petition we received from Mr. Barry Jacobs from the Grootbrak area. I'm going to immediately hand over to Dr. Alexander from the Commission for Land Claims and Restitution to brief the committee on this petition. Dr. Alexander, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to say hello, Mr. Jacobs. We have written a response with regard to the petition to the committee members, but I'll give you an overview of the claim, and then my colleague, Mr. Smith, will enhance some of the information that we're sharing, as he's been involved with this claim for many years. But also just to say that our technology in the office is extremely temperamental. So if I'm kicked out, I'll obviously will have to reboot and get back. So, but David will be around to take care of things as we go forward. Safe to say, Mr. Chair and members, that Mr. Barry Jacobs lodged this claim before the cut-off date of 31st December 1998 regarding the dispossession of former tenants who resided in different areas within the Great Bruck River. So I'm not going to mention all the areas, but to say that these claims were for various areas that were lodged for the disposition of residential rights and were settled in phases, of which the claim for phase 3 was the last claim that was approved during 29. So all the claimants thus far, Chair, for these different areas went through a very, very rigorous verification process to ensure that they are indeed the beneficiaries for the claim. And the final verification list from each area, those lists were all signed off by the Great Bruck River Claimant Committee for full and final settlement of the claims. So that's the brief, the overview of the processes that we follow. And I think it's important for the members also to note that we do follow different steps, and sometimes people, it doesn't mean if you have tabled a claim and correctly and in time, that automatically the claim is compliant. It is therefore researched and it's checked through different processes, and thereafter, if it's compliant, it follows due research processes, and we then go further and we negotiate and we mediate with the various claimants, and the settlement is then offered to people. So I thought it's important for us also to make that upfront as to how we follow due processes. So that's an overview, Chair, of the claim as tabled by Mr. Barry Jacobs for the Great Bruck Rivier area. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. We've got another member that just joined. Member Maseko, may I ask you to please introduce yourself? Is Member Maseko here? I think I just saw her name pop up. Okay, she's probably struggling with connection, but welcome, Member Maseko. Members, I'm now going to hand over to you. Are there any questions based on the overview as well as the documentation that was sent to us? There was a document which answered some of the questions we sent through to the Commission. I see Member Allen. You want to go ahead, Member Allen?
Thank you, Chairperson. If I am following your remark, based on the overview and the document, are we then able to ask questions? Is that what you are saying, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you to the Commission for being here. I wanted to double check. When I read the document, Chair, I felt it's rather thin in information. For example, on point number 4, there's no estimated time frame for its conclusion. Are we able to get like an estimation on that, or what is the hold up? If we go to point number 5 again, it's stated that the cutoff date is not the only criteria that is being used. But are we able to get some information on the other criteria and how that affect the process? Also, how that is potentially slowing down the process. But ultimately, does this mean that no research has been conducted as per the committee's request in point number 5? And then just lastly, Chair, on point number 6, again, it is stated that the claimants and the beneficiaries are being contacted, but no real information or timelines where we are in that process, etc. I'm not sure if the Commission will still flesh out that questions, but based on your remarks, that's my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Allen. Are there any other members who would like to pose a question now?
Chair, I'm covered by Member Allen, so I'm fine. Those were exactly what I was going to ask, so I'm covered by him. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Syed. Then from my side, if maybe Dr. Alexander, if the Commission can take us through what the process is for submitting a complaint, and then also perhaps if you could shed some light on why it's taken so long to process some of these claims, and then also again, what is the time frame for that research to be conducted, and if you could detail a little bit more in terms of what that research is. I understand that you have to verify the extent of the land that is being disputed, and that you also need to check for racial bias. And then if you could perhaps on the SOWISA claim, perhaps talk a bit more about the exclusion in terms of the Restitution of Land Rights Act, Act 22 of 1994 as amended, specifically around you indicating that because the claimants only spent a portion of the year there, they do not qualify. But what is the fact that there were structures on the land and sort of those structures belonging to specific families? What does that have to do with it as well? Those are the questions for now. Shall I hand over to you?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah. So just if I go through in terms of the questions that were posed, but also just, in terms of the response to the matters as set out in the petition. So the two outstanding issues are mainly the one with SOWISA, which we had, put out that the one was for recreational purposes. And in terms of the Act, that's not really considered for a claim to be lodged. And that was explained to the claimants before. And so although there were wooden structures they used for camping and recreational purpose, these were obviously removed as a result of the widening of the railway line. But from our observation and research, this did not happen. And in terms of the Act, Chair, of 2294 as amended, if I may read that as it was stated in the Act, any right in land, whether registered or unregistered, and may include the interests of a labour tenant and a sharecropper, customary law interests, the interests of a beneficiary under trust arrangement and beneficial occupation for a continuous period. And I think this is where we need to emphasize for a continuous period of less than 10 years prior to the disposition in question. So there would have been, you had to stay on the site for a continuous period for 10 years. And so the fact that the camping site was only used for a limited period and for a specific purpose does not. Sorry, there's something happening, Chair.
Mr. Murray has just joined us. Welcome, Member Murray. You are in the Petitions Committee, and we're dealing with a petition submitted from the community of Grootbrak.
Okay.
I understand you wanted to be part of this meeting as well.
Yes, it just slipped my mind about the meeting. I wanted to be part of it, but I don't know whether we're in already. Are we in now?
We've just started. We are now getting some responses from Dr. Wayne Alexander from the Land Claims Commission.
I'll be joining now.
Okay, we'll mute you.
I'm on the phone, but they're trying to just connect me to the meeting on my laptop.
Okay,
I've got it in there. I'll be pressing the join you button.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Dr. Alexander. You can continue.
No problem. That's fine, Chair. And so that's just the issue around SOWISA and the camping site. And then in terms of the research as asked by Honourable Member, I think, Alan, yeah, you see, in terms of what we do, so we have a panel of researchers that's put together by a national department, and they then source this out for these different service providers to do the research. We have written to them with regard to feedback on this matter. Unfortunately, Mr. Allen, we have not received feedback yet, but we continually following up on this this research request, and then as soon as we get feedback, we will certainly be in touch with the claimant. It's unfortunate that I really can't give an estimated time as to when this will happen. This year, as you know, has been very, very trying year for all of us. But we are having, for example, a virtual meeting on all other outstanding research reports with our national team on Monday. And thereafter, I'll soon be able to give the claimant more feedback as to when we'll be able to get the report, and also try and be in touch with the service provider regarding the research that we've outsourced to them. And then there was some further question, I think, in terms of other criteria. Look, Chair, besides the racial laws, etc., that's, as you know, our main criteria that we would follow. It's also in terms of is there a deceased estate, and was that dispossessed of a right in land. We look also at the direct descendants of the people that were dispossessed, etc. We also look at the community or the part of the community that dispossessed, but the underlying factor remains 19 June 1913, and as a result of past racially discriminatory laws and practices. So that in raw, Chair, would be what we look at when we look whether the claimant or the community would be entitled for restitution. And as I said, our first step really is the lodgement, that is the cut-off date, and there's a particular form that people would fill in, and that had to be tabled before the 31st of December 1998. We then follow, as I said earlier, Chair, and we're fully aware of the long time that it has taken to settle claims since 1998, but we have examined our processes, and we're currently busy with what we call a COHASA process where we're looking at how we can improve our business processes to ensure that the claims are settled more expeditiously, and then come up with a fast tracking system. It's however important also, colleagues and Mr. Chairperson, to note that some cases have taken longer and sometimes complex, and the complex cases could be whereby there could be competing claims on certain land parcels, or also what we find in some unfortunate family feuds and issues, which we then try and mediate to ensure that we settle these claims. I think further to note that whilst we in the office, we do most of the administrative work, we also follow judicial processes. And if we cannot settle after mediations and negotiations with family and claimants, we then have to refer these matters to court, and that will also take some time. But in terms of, and I'm going to paraphrase now, in terms of the processes follow, so that would include the lodgement, which is that form that people would complete and then register the claim. We would screen and categorize the claim, determine whether the claims meet the sets of criteria which I've explained to you in terms of the Act. And then once that has all been sorted and we're happy, we then negotiate with claimants and parties in terms of whether they're happy with the compensation that's going to offer. So some would want financial compensation, some want restoration, and restoration of land can obviously only be offered if the land is still available. If it's not available, we seek alternative land for the claimants. And once there is acceptance of the nature of the compensation, the settlement is then approved and then eventually finalized. So we have, as I said earlier, experienced some delays, and most of the delays has been with the Office of the Value General and with some of the research. And we've, as I've said, we are looking at how we can expeditiously do things differently, fully aware of the long time it has taken to settle claims. And so we have embarked on a national project called the Kuhasa Project, so that we look at doing things differently. Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if I've answered the questions, but I've also tried to bring in the issues as pertaining to Mr. Barry Jacobs. But if Mr. Smith, my Director Operations, please feel free, David, to fill some gaps. Thank you, Chair. If it's fine with you, Chair.
That is fine with me, sir. Mr. Smith, you may continue.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Furthermore, so what we've done in Grootbrak River, we have done research on all the areas. So to determine whether there was a racial law or racial practice, after that was done, obviously now we must actually look at people that actually comply, like the members of the community. So then process verification was done. And the committee and Mr. Barry Jacobs was part of the process, because we didn't settle any claim in Grootbrak that was not signed off by the committee. So basically, people will fill in affidavit, and then they must also provide 2 third parties that confirm that they actually stayed there for a period of not less than 10 years prior to dispossession. And then based on that, it was determined that the claim is compliant. So in some cases, somebody will leave before the time, maybe move to Cape Town for work. So obviously, then because we had like a group of like elderly people that was actually older than 18 years during the time of dispossession, that were in position to determine and say, no, I know that person actually stayed there. And then after that, we then communicate with the people to say, listen here, based on the information that we received, you did not stay here. You're not a household on your own. You were staying with your parents. Although you're older than 21 years old, during the time of dispossession, you were not a household on your own. And then we will actually send a letter to the person giving the reasons for why their claim is deemed not to be compliant. And then after that, if there's no response received, then basically they will then receive a final letter signed by the Regional National Claims Commissioner to indicate that the claim is non-compliant, and also giving the reasons. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any other follow-up questions that we'd like to note, or any new questions? I note Member Allen. Any other members that want to pose a question at this time? Member Allen, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. I thank you to the Commission for answering the questions posed earlier on. But I just wanted one further follow-up question, Chair. Based on the reply on point number 1, where it's specifically dealing with recreational rights, and as we've heard, that the claim was found to be non-compliant. But does that mean that the matter is now considered finalized, or did the Commission, or does the law provide any other recourse to the claimants? But also, Chair, and please pronounce me as out of order for this one, if you are going to provide Mr. Jacobs with an opportunity for his input, or if he has any concerns further. I would love to hear from you.
No, so you're certainly not out of order, Member Allen. Mr. Jacobs is going to be given an opportunity to also make input. This is just the first part of our process. So just going back to questions again, Dr. Alexander, if you could perhaps tell us when the research company was briefed and what their terms of reference were. I think that would be very helpful. And then also just going back to the original complaint that this petitions committee received, one of the requests from the petitioner was that a distinction was being made between land claimants who lived next to one another, despite the fact that everyone lived in the same area for which a claim was being made. So one of the allegations is that one family's or one person's claim is approved while the neighbor, is rejected, and no reasoning is provided for why that is rejected. And I'm being mindful of the irony of saying this because I'm speaking in English and we don't have translation services available just yet on our online settings. But one of the complaints from the petitioners is also that the interviews conducted when the research was done was all done in English, and none of it was done in the home language of the claimants. So if you could perhaps respond to that, and also perhaps respond on how you deal with agricultural claims. Before you do, I see Member Philander, your hand is up.
Yes, Chairperson, I am covered by Member Allen in terms of Mr. Jacobs' participation. Chairperson, and just to the response, I just need yourself or the PO to refresh our memory. In terms of point 7, I can remember the committee resolving that wanting a breakdown in more specific as that was provided in point 7, Chairperson. Is that available? Will it still be provided? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member. Are there any other questions to Mr. Alexander? Members? Okay, then I'm going to hand over to Mr. Alexander to answer that. Also, just being mindful, Mr. Alexander, the question that Member Philander just asked around the breakdown. Is this the breakdown as we asked for it, or is there another part to this as well?
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the questions. If the honourable member wants a further breakdown, maybe just give us more specifics as to what is further required. We certainly will offer the breakdown if this doesn't suffice, and we clearly would do that at a later stage if that's fine with the honourable member. Clearly, I don't have further breakdown in front of me except for what I have currently here, which I've already presented, but we can certainly provide further breakdown, and if that's required. Then with regard to the research, Chair, as I've stated, I will be meeting our National Research Unit on Monday, and I will clearly be able to give you when they're briefed, because we don't really brief the providers. They then they're in touch with the providers. We give them what it is that they need to look into, but I will be able to follow up on that briefing issue on Monday. Then with regard to agricultural claims, Chair, it follows the same processes in terms of if, for example, if we take the Ebenezer matter where those farms were dispossessed, and it follows the normal racial practices, etc. That claim will be tabled, and we will then follow the due processes that I've mentioned earlier, 6-7 processes. And if there's an agreement, we would then settle that claim in accordance with the Act. So if the farm was dispossessed because of racial practices, that claim would be lodged with us, and we would follow the same steps and up till finalization and the land, if it's obviously available. And well, in most cases, the farms that, for example, Ebenezer, those farms were available and we could return it to the claimants. I think it's also important to note, Chair, that with the agriculture, as you know, there's two positions that we follow. The one is restitution, and that's the one we deal with, and then there's the whole notion which the department deals with, which is redistribution of land, where people that's wanting to farm and want some farmland could apply for that. Unfortunately, I don't know all those processes because we don't deal with redistribution, but there's another way of having access to agricultural land as well. Then with regard to the families and the issue of language, and I'm going to ask Mr. Smith, because he, as I said, he's been involved with this for a long time and will be able to share that issue with you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe let me just, I think there was a question regarding recreational rights and
Yes.
what is the position of the Commission. So because the claim is non-compliant, in terms of the Restitution Act, there's section 622 or 62B, where the department can offer alternative relief. But that is, for example, if somebody submits a claim and when we investigate the claim, we will discover, but this is actually land reform related. The claim was submitted before the cutoff time, but is not a restitution claim. Then we can advise the minister to offer alternative relief. But in this case, because the land was only used most of the time during the summer holiday, so we don't fall within the ambit of land reform. And we also advise Mr. Jacobs on numerous occasions that he must actually approach the municipality. And I think the municipality currently, I think the land is currently still be used during December's for holidays. So, and that was the advice that he must actually approach the municipality and to see whether something can be done. Because I've also spoken to the municipality informally, and they've indicated that maybe there's a possibility that the land can still be used, a portion of the land can still be used for recreational facilities or purposes. So that is in regarding to Sowizia. Then in terms of the interviews conducted in English, I was also part, and Mr. Jacobs was also part of the interviews on numerous occasions, and that was never the case because some of the officials were fluent in English and Afrikaans, and the committee was also present. So I don't think that can actually be a reason to say that people did not understand. Is unfortunately information like I moved to Cape Town because I was working in Cape Town. If you move to Cape Town before the cutoff time and you confirm it, your third parties confirm it, then you cannot change the information later, because in some cases people were saying, no, I didn't understand. But obviously when they realize, but I'm going to fall outside the Restitution Act, then in some cases people want to change the alter, like the affidavits. I think that's one of the things that actually happened. And I think the other question was, why is it that somebody, maybe neighbors, the claim will be compliant and the person living next to the claim will be non-compliant? That is precisely the reason. In some cases, somebody moved before the dispossession, the date of dispossession. In other cases, somebody that submitted a claim for themselves, and we look at the age when they were born. For example, dispossession happened in 1966. If you were born in 1958, so clearly it was impossible that you was a household on your own. So if you're 7, 8, 10 years old, so it's impossible that you can submit a claim for yourself. So that is all the things. So I'm just maybe mentioning one or two reasons, and that is basically some of the reasons why some of the claims will be non-compliant because of the information that people provided. So then obviously if you're 12 years old, it's impossible to be a household on your own. And obviously if you stated under oath, signed by a police officer, that you actually left to go and work somewhere else before the cutoff time, then the claim will be non-compliant. And then in terms of the agricultural claims in Grootbrak, first of all, on the claim form, it was not mentioned that a claim was submitted for agriculture, for agricultural plots or property. So in terms of the Restitution Act, we look at the claim form and we must only deal with the claim form. But we also decided just to we started with a questionnaire, and we actually had interviews with some of the people. And it was clear because everybody was that stayed on the different areas like Mosines, on all the areas that they worked at the shoe factory. And in terms of farming, so farming is not if you come back from work in the afternoon and you maybe have a small garden. So that is not, you cannot submit a claim for farming. If I've got 1 chicken or 2 chickens, maybe I've just tend to them maybe after hours as a hobby. So, and we made it clear to, before the cutoff date, because when the claims reopened in 2014, and that's the reason why we actually done some interviews just to determine whether there was actually farming. And based on our preliminary investigation, it was clear that people regarding maybe that things that they're doing after hours, if they knock off at 5 o'clock, they regard that as farming. And I made it clear to them, but that is not farming, because you're supposed to make a living or spend a specific time basically and get the income from farming or from agriculture. Then you can submit agricultural claim, and you must have a demarcated area that you've actually used, not in the back garden, maybe a few pumpkins. So unfortunately, and based on that, we didn't pursue the agricultural claims further. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any other questions or follow-ups? Member Allen?
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and again to the Commission for answering. And maybe if the Commission can help me in this regard, I would like to understand, in my mind, Chairperson, land restitution, it seeks to return land or to provide compensation to victims who have lost land rights because of racially discriminatory laws or practices. And the comment that was made in terms of if a 12-year-old now submitted, or they were born a couple of years before the land was taken, in my mind, that person would still be a victim because it could be their parents or their grandparents. How does that claim get processed if you can confirm that, but I lived in that household with my grandfather or with my mother who is no longer with us? Will it then just be non-compliant because there's no grandmother because she has since passed away? Because that person will still be a victim in my mind. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Member Murray?
Yes, I just wanted to say I at last managed to join you. We were struggling to join you, so there is not much I can say. I didn't hear the presentation and so on, but I'll catch up as it goes on. If this is land claims, I think that the only thing I want to say is that unless I am fully informed and know what is the basis of the claim and whether it falls within Section 25 of the Constitution, I will not be able to make a useful contribution until I know all the facts. Maybe it is an opportunity that we listen to the petitioners, but then do our homework and rather do a thorough research before we venture to take any decisions on this issue. We should be fully informed.
Thank you, Member Murray. This is only our second meeting on this petition. What I will do is ask the Procedural Officer, Ms. Wasima Hassan Musa, to send you all the documentation as well as the responses received. I see your hand as well, but I just want to...
Chair?
Yes, who is that?
Okay, it's Member Maseko. I'm sorry, I don't have a hand.
Do you have a question, Member Maseko?
Yes, Chairperson. When you have time, can you recognize me, please?
No, you can go ahead now, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. And I'm sorry, when you called me, I was technologically challenged. I tried to talk to you, but I couldn't. Chair, I just want to add to Member Allen where he left off. And I heard when the official was talking about the issue of it cannot be some of the people were at the age that they were independent, staying on their own at that age. But now, when you go to, for example, District 6, people were removed 1901. Does that principle also works there that 1901, that means there's no one in District 6 that qualifies to can be restituted to their own land? Or is it there is a system that gets implemented to different places per wherever that has to happen, or there is a standard principle that has to be implemented on the land restitutions? I am just trying to get the clarity on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to clarify. I was saying the person that submitted the claim, the person was underage. That person can actually submit a claim on behalf of the mother or the father, but then they cannot submit a claim for themselves. So that was, I didn't say that they cannot submit a claim because obviously they're older now, but they cannot submit a claim and say in 1966, if I was 8 years old, I was dispossessed, my parents or my grandparents was dispossessed, and that person will be in their right to submit a claim, but not for themselves. Because what happened in some cases, people submitted claims for their parents, the grandparents, and then they also want to submit claims for themselves. And if you look at the age and say, okay, it's fine, for your parents it's fine, your grandparents is fine, but for yourself, because you were 12 or 10 years old during the time of dispossession, so it's impossible for you to be a household on your own. In terms of the question regarding District 6, so the Restitution Act is talking about 1913, so the procedure is the same. Anybody that was dispossessed after 1913 can submit a claim because if they were dispossessed because of racial law or racial practice. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm now going to move on to the next part, and we're going to hand over to the petitioner, Mr. Barry Jacobs, to make his input. You are welcome to note down any questions that you have for both Mr. Jacobs as well as our colleagues from the Commission, and we will then answer those questions. Mr. Jacobs?
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We're now giving you an opportunity to give us an overview of your petition and also for you to pose any questions you have, sir.
Ek sê baie dankie by hier en dames en so. Ek het nou 'n bietjie in die war. Jammer dat ek nou bietjie Afrikaans praat. Maar ek is 'n bietjie in die war. Ek het gemeen dat ek het moes punte deurgestuur, besprekingspunte het ek deurgestuur. Nou ek het gedink ons gaan die punte afhandel. Want u sien, julle was nou by Soweto gewees. Nee, ek kan oor Soweto praat. Dan word daar terug die afgekeurde eise. Kyk, ek het byvoorbeeld hier by my het ek nou die punte wat ons vir julle deurgestuur het. Waar ons gelukkig is en so nie verstaan nie. Ek wou eintlik gehad dat ons met hom nou punt vir punt handel Soweto af, dan kom ons by die ander besprekingspunte en so verstaan nie nou. Kan ek maar begin en so.
Ja, asseblief meneer. U kan deur die punte gaan, meneer.
Ja. Die punte is mos eers dat die non-compliant claims wat ons nou van gepraat het, né? Die afgekeurde eise, né? Die afgekeurde eise. Ek het gehoor dat meneer David Smith sê daar was hy Engels gepraat nie. Mr. David Smith het op 'n later stadium hier gekom. Hy was baie by die waar hulle die mense die onderhoude gevoer het en so. Nou as u nou Grootbrak ken, en ken die vlak van geletterdheid, dan sal u verstaan, en so verstaan. Daar was 'n Engels gepraat, self die Afrikaans wat deur die amptenare gebruik het almal kon dit nie verstaan nie, so nie. En die ander ding is rondom die forums. Ek was in 'n bedryf werksaam wat die mense het 'n vrees vir vorm. En so verstaan. En so toe sê die mense is verboureerd, hulle verskrik, hulle is bang. Nou word daar Engels gepraat, daar word die Afrikaans gepraat, wat hulle nie verstaan en so. Dit was die mense was geïntimideer gewees en so. Maar daar was, ons het daaroor gepraat, ons het gevra dat die mense moet Afrikaans praat en so verstaan en so. Daarom, dit is heeltemal waar, die mense het die verstaan en so. En dan die ander ding is, die onderhoude was gevoer dat ek sit by die tafel, maar dit was geensins privaatheid gewees het. En so verstaan nie. Almal kon gehoor het wat jy gepraat het, jy nog agter my sit, die ry agter my sit. Dan kan jy gehoor het wat gepraat word. Daar was die privaatheid wat jy en die persoon kyk alleen praat en so nie. Nee? Dan kom ek sommer by wat Mr. Smith gesê het van die bure. Ons het saam met die kommissie gepraat. Toe sê ons, as 'n eis goedgekeur is, hy is goedgekeur. Hoekom word daar gevra? Sê nou dat 50 mense gebly. Dan moet die komitee of die eisers van die plek sê, ons identifiseer die 50 mense, hier is die 50 mense. En daar word nog nie gevra, die eis is mos nou wettig en so verstaan nie. Nou, ons kan nie verstaan, hoe kan twee bure, ek en jy het langs mekaar gebly. Ek is 'n bietjie slimmer as jy. Die ander een is 'n bietjie skaam, die ander een weet nie. Wat verstaan nie? Ek het saam met meneer Daniel Jacobs was ons by die ysgebiede gewees. Dan weet die persone nie waar hulle gebly het en so nie. Die mense het gesukkel met die datums en so. En as baie is ongeletterde mense, dan moet ek vir hulle wys, mense, julle daar gebly en so, né? Die ander ding is, ons hande as die komitee was afgekap. Want ek was dopgou, ek mag nie met die mense praat nie. Ons mag hulle nie eintlik leiding gegee het en so nie, verstaan nie. Nou en so, maar ek kan nie glo dat twee bure, die een het daar gebly, die ander het ook daar gebly. As die een iets verkeerd gesê het, dan moet jy mos sê, dan moet daar mos 'n bietjie rigting gegee word. Party van die amptenare het rigting gegee, maar party het geensins rigting nie. Die mense was afgeskrik. Meneer Smith het gepraat van mense wat Kaap toe gaan, né? Hoe kan ons 5 mense, ons hoor, as ook nie so, as ek hoor, dat ons moet verskuif, en ek hoor, daar sal werk, maar ons gaan nou binne 'n jaar moet ons verskuif. Ek kan gou vat die Wolwedamsdam by ons in Grootbrakrivier. Die dam was nie 'n oornag gebou nie. Daar was 10 jaar beplan gewees. Ons het 10 jaar geweet, hulle gaan die dam gaan hulle bou. Hulle gaan 'n pad hier bou. En dan moet jy al voorsiening maak. As ek weet dat ons gaan moet verskuif, moet trek, en ek kry 'n werkoffer, dan gaan ek. En ons het 5 persone saamgegaan Kaap toe. Ons het saamgetrek, ons saamgebly, saam begin te werk in die Kaap. 4 persone word goedgekeur. 1 persoon word afgekeur en so. Dis miskien nog 'n lettertyd vlak. Party mense kan nie vir hulle self praat en so nie. Daarom daai ding hou nie water en ons het gepleit beheerlik. Mense, ons ken nie mense wat daar gebly het op die gebiede. Kom, die mense sê Piet het hier gebly en so nie, verstaan jy? Dis nog ons redenasie daarom en so rondom die. En dan die ander ding is, daar was vir my gesê, toe die briewe kom, toe word daar gesê die eise is afgekeur. Toe vra ons vir die kommissie, kan ons nie weer sit met die eisers nie, met die eisers wat afgekeur is nie, né? Ek het onmiddellik 'n beswaar ingestuur, want jy moet binne 60 dae moet jy reageer. Ek het 'n vergadering gehou by die hoërskool met al die eisers. Toe sê ek mense, die eise is nou afgekeur, jy het nou briewe gekry van julle, 126 is afgekeur. Julle moet nou reageer. Julle moet binne 60 dae. Maar ek het ook vir hulle gesê dat omdat ek die voorsitter is, het ek 'n brief vir hulle weggestuur. Nou is die probleem. Nou sê meneer Wayne Alexander, hy soek die brief. Hoeveel jaar was hy terug gewees? Ek vra vir hulle, ek het hier in besit van briewe wat hulle gesê het, hulle gaan kyk binne die leers. Nee? Ek het hoeveel keer, ek het 'n krat goed, ek het dokumente te deur gegaan, het ek miskien 'n afskrif gemaak nie. As ek vanaand 'n brief skryf, dan stuur ek hom môre, deur miskien saam Marius Langeveld, hy werk, dan kan ek 'n afskrif maak. Wat verstaan nie? Die kommissie sit in bewys, in besit van 'n bewys van my, wat ek beswaar gemaak het, binne die 60 dae, hoekom die eise afgekeur is en so. Maar dit pas die kommissie nou, omdat ek het gesoek aan die brief, ek het die week gevra vir die mense wat ek ben saam mee op komitee is, ons het gesoek vir die briewe, daar binne die tyd het daar 'n persoon gesterf, ons het die notuleboek gesoek, maar ongelukkig het ons nie goed gekry, of ek miskien 'n afskrif, want gewoonlik maak ek 'n afskrif, maar baie keer kon ek 'n afskrif maak, en soos vanavond, môre stuur ek 'n brief, dan kan ek 'n afskrif maak, en nog dan ons het geen fasiliteite eintlik om afskrif te maak, maar sit met die, daarom kan ek nie sê, daar is die beswaar gemaak. Ek het 'n beswaar, het ek ingegee, hy lê op die leers van Grootbrakrivier, lê daar so. Nee? Dan het ons gepraat, ek het sommer reageer op Soweto. Nee? Nou Soweto is eintlik So wie is jy, ek kan eis op maar alleen nie, is 2 gebiede. So wie is jy, en Otto. Ek het het ek gebly. Grootbrakse mense het in Grootbrak gebly, in Mossienes, die Dam, Sandhoogte en allerlei plekke. Ek het op die Konkamp gebly, en langs ons was die NG kamp. Ons se plek by die see was gewees vir Otto. Ek het 'n eis ingestuur vir Otto. Grootbrakse mense het die kamp gebruik. Daar was huise gewees. Daar was min of meer 15 huise gewees. Ons kan nie sê die mense het dit naweke op die sender. Mense het in die week ook afgegaan. Daar gaan bly. Dit laat my sommer nou dink. Hier by ons langs die strand. Hier staan dan groot huise. Hier by see. Langs aan so huise, tegen staan groot huise. Wat net vakansietye. Ek kan ook mens nou na die persone toe gaan en sê, dit is die hele huise nie, dit is naweekhuise, dit is vakansiehuise. Die mense dan kaartentransport. Nou ek gaan nou ongelukkig die term gebruik. Die sogenaamde breinmense kon nie daai tyd kaartentransport gekry het nie. En dit is hoe hulle nie 'n eienaarskap gehad het van die huise nie. En so nie. Dit was hulle huise gewees. Hulle het dit gebou. Hulle het in die week baie keer daar gebly. Naweek daar gebly en so. Maar hulle kon nie kaartentransport gekry het nie. Dan die ander ding is dat daai gebied, ek praat nou van die kamp, so hier, daai gebied was verklaar as 'n sogenaamde kleerlinggebied. Die bordjie het onder gestaan en dan het die bordjie bo by ons gestaan. Slegs die kleerlinge, langsaan is dit slegs blankes en by ons, by Otto, het ook 2 bordjies gestaan. En so slegs kleerlinge en dan slegs blanke. By ons het Otto gebruik. Daar het blankes langs die spoor by see gebly. Daar was 2 huise. Dan was 3-4 huise gewees, plankhuise gewees. Nee? Was daar gewees. Maar omdat ons die plek daar gebruik het, baie gebruik het, ons het kulture aangedoen, alles het ons aangedoen. Soos by Easter, daai tye, het ons feesdae gehou. Toe die blankes maar uitgetrek uit die huise daar. En ons het toe daai het ons gebruik, daar gekamp, daar gebly. Die huise, die ander huise, die plankhuise was afgebreek. Het was verskuif na die saagmele toe. Ons het daai plek het ons gebruik. En ons het daai plek, ek as kind, het daai plek het ons gesien. Maar dit is waar ons plek. Daai, en so verstaan nie. Ek gaan onthou as 'n kind, gaan ek aan 'n kerkskooltjie langs ons plek, langs die Konkamp, die NG Kerkkamp. Dis hulle ons moet afgaan na die trein toe, die koning gaan kom. Ek is 'n kind, ons gaan af, met die vlaggies. Die koning gaan praat toe, soos hy staan, binne nie, ek met treinstasie op die ding, sy praat en sy wys so na die grond, wys hy. Ons is toe, hy is toe by skool, maar dit het vir my gepla. ek was altyd kyk nuuskierig. Wat het sy gesê in die Engels? Nou vra ek vir juffrou. Die juffrou in my klas. Vra ek juffrou maar, wat het die vrou gepraat? Sy groot mense wat raar weet. Toe kom het uit dat die vrou te sê, al die grond wat hier lê, julle bevoordeel, daai is julle grond en so. Nou praat ek van Otto, dan praat ek van die Konkamp, dan praat ek van die Ingekamp, dan praat ek van die Saagkamp. Het Queen Victoria gesê, die is julle grond. Mense wat baie hartseer wat pyn veroorsaak het. Nee? My pa was 4 keer was hy verdryf. Hy glo nie tyd opmaak. Ek as 'n kind, ons bly toen in die Konkampies, maar jy kry die NG kamp, kry Konkamp, dan kry Saagkamp, maar ek het toen die Saagkamp het ons gebly. Ek is seker hy het so 4 jaar oud gewees en so net. Het ons gebly. Toe, nou, elke maand of so, kan ek onthou, kom 'n meneer Stryger kom aan. Nou as meneer Stryger kom, ons het daar tussen die bosse gebly. Toe 'n stuk grond skoon gehad in plankhuise. As Mr. Stryger die dag kom, dan sê my auntie, sy het by Blankes gewerk, as 'n Blankes huis. Dan sê sy, vandag met julle in die bosse gaan speel. Maar ons het amper nooit Mr. Stryger gesien nie, want ons moet in die bosse gaan speel die hele tyd, daar in 'n paadjie. Nou, na hy weg is, dan het sy hom kom roep. Toe is hulle besig om vir ons weg te kry, want sy ouers het nie gepraat nie. Hulle wil ons wegkry. Wat so hartseer is, toe breek haar brand uit, onverklaarbaar breek haar brand uit. Gelukkig vir ons, dat ons het waar om die huise was, sand gewees, daar is hulle sandbaan om die huise. Ons het hy nag, hy paar dae met ons 4 doodgeslaat. Dit wil sê, dit kon nie oorkom na die huise toe. Dis wat ons gered het. Ons vra toe by ouers, want sy ouers wil nie praat en so nie, met ons nie. Nou ek het toe agterna gehoor, dat hulle vermoed daar was brandstigting gewees, om ons uit te kry. Kort daarna het ons, dis nou die duine, daai groepie mense, het toe verskuif na die Konkamp toe, na die Saagkamp toe, na die Ingekamp toe. Daar het ons toe gebly, en so gestaan. Ons bly in die Konkamp, mense bly in die Ingekamp. Nou het ek maar nog gehoor, ons bly in plankhuise daarso. Die kerk het die grond bestuur. Die mense het voor die kerk, daar was eers mense, toe kom 'n kerk, kom hulle die kerkhuise. Die kerk was opgelink, die Congregational kerk was opgelink, saam met die Saalse gewees. Groot werkverskaffers was hulle gewees. Nee? Nou aan die kerk, die huise was so gewees, dis nie heeltemal waar om te David praat nie. 'n Huis was so gewees. Ek is 18 jaar, ek is 19 jaar oud. Die huis het 'n deur gehad. Dat is so lang huis, het 'n deur gehad. En toen sê ek het my eie deur. Ek het sommer een ding het ek my kos gemaak as 'n een huis, plankhuise. Ek is 'n huishouding op my eie en so. Daarom ek kan sê, dis 'n een huis, dat 3 huise in gebly. Byvoorbeeld op 'n eie. By ons was hy in dan ons 'n kamer, en ons in kamers gebly en so. Daarom ek kan nie sê, dis 'n een huishouding nie. Jacobs, hulle was nou by een huishouding gewees en so nie. Nee? Kan hulle nie sê nie. Dan die ander ding is, rondom die ys. Ons almal ons het nie geld betaal nie, ons het aan die kerk het ons salaris betaal. My pa het betaal, ek het betaal, as jy lidmaat word van die kerk, dan betaal jy die salaris, né? Maar ons het nie hier betaal nie. Ek is aangeneem, ek is lidmaat net soos my pa. Ek betaal net soos hy. My broers allemaal betaal. En op die grond, by die NG-kamp, by die Kongkamp, het daar skoon stukke grond. Dat wil sê, het ek getrou, voor ons daar moet uitgaan, dan het ek 'n stukkie grond, my grond het daar gewag. Ons as jongman as 'n grond het daar gewag. Hulle is nou besig by die NG-kamp om huise te bou op 'n stukkie grond vir die kinders. Nou, met die eis van die Kongkamp was vir ons ouers was vir goed gewees. Maar ons wat jong mense gewees, mense wat besig om te trou, wat op hulle grond moet gebly het. Ons was nog geensins restaurasie plaasgevind het. Ons grond lê nou daar. Op ons grond gaan 'n ouer huis nou gebou word en so. En dit is die reg wat sê, hulle het nooit ons reg behandel. Ons as kinders, dis ons erfenis daar gewees. Ons is daar gebore. Dis ons bloedgrond daar en so. Ons staan nou 'n kans om daai grond terug te kry. En ons kan daar 'n monument opbou vir nasie bou. Kan ons rondom die Kongkamp. As ons nou weer praat, ek het bly, ek sien meneer Maree hierso. Hy kan ons vertel, meneer Maree was hierso. Daar was 'n plan gewees, as ek nou net kom na Soweto toe. Daar sou 'n kleerling gebied sou haar gekom het. Hulle sou huise gebou het. Daar vir mense en so. Ek wil ook vra of ek maar nog kan aangaan, want ek sien is iemand nou. Meneer voorsitter, kan ek maar aangaan?
U kan aangaan, meneer?
Ja. Dit is nou rondom Soweto, nee. Dan as ek die punte so vat. Daarom ons die afgekeerde eise. Die eise kan nie afgekeer word nie. Dit kan nie, daar is vir ons gesê presies hoekom die eise afgekeer, hoekom 'n persoon sy eise afgekeer het. Ons wil hê, daar moet weer teruggekom word, wat ons weer oor die eise sit wat afgekeer is. Want dis die reggie, dis onmin in die gemeenskap, dat ek was gecompenseer, my buurman is gecompenseer. Dan kom ek, 'n ander punt is mos die multiple eise, veelvoudige eise. Toe ons met die eiseproses begin het, en dis Mr. Daniel Jacobs, Mr. Ken Magalipi, ek het hier, hy twee manne, ons het baie gestry, baie vastgesit, maar hulle het vir ons baie, het hulle gedoen ook en so. Toe ons met die proses begin, was daar vir ons gesê, jy kan 2 jaar, kan jy op 'n plek gebly, en dan kan jy 2 jaar op 'n ander plek, maar dit moet voldoen aan die vereistes, dat jy uitgesit het, of dit was die apartheid gewees, né? Ons het daai beginsel, het ons hier gehad en so. En nog om nog die kersie op die koek te sit, was ons uitgenooi na 'n vergadering in Kaapstad. Wat minister Quinty het daar gepraat. Hy sê daarso, ons was van al die gebiede. Hy sê daar, 'n persoon moet 2 jaar ten minste in 'n plek gebly het. Hy sê jy kan tot 14 eise kan jy ingesit het. Toe kom die mos nou van die 10 jaar. As 'n minister op 'n platform dit sê, dan kan ons en ons het dit saam met die navorsers het ons dit laat verstaan. Daar is mense wat voldoen, wat miskien nou 2 eise het wat aan die 10 jaar voldoen. Ons het by die hoërskool Mr. David Smit weet daarvan. Toe sê Mr. David Smit, dit was toe alvaar, kom, ons losgelang die saak van die 2 jaar, want die saak met grondeise hof toe gaan. Nee? Althans, daar was gesê dat meneer Ben Marcel gaan met ons kom ontmoet, dat dit nie gebeur nie. Nee? Daarom, toe sê, as 'n persoon van die eisers dan 'n 10 jaar periode is, dan kan die eis voortgaan en die eis kan moontlik kompenseer word. Nee? Meneer Daniel Jacobs sê vir my, ons hou 'n vergadering in die biblioteek. Na die vergadering sit ek en hy praat. Hy sê vir my, Barry, hy het dan navorsing gedaan. Hy sê, julle kan eintlik van 11 jaar af, dan kan julle 'n eise insit. Hy sê, want dat kinders van 11 jaar gewerk. Ek het 14 jaar het ek begin te werk in die skoenfabriek. Het ek begin te werk en so. En toe is ons op ons eie. Hy sê, ons kan van 11 jaar af 'n eise insit. En dan moet die eise goedgekeur word. Dan so, ek meen dan jy eis en so. Die uitstaande eise. Ek gaan sommer my punte so afhandel. Dit is nou voetpad. Voetpad was hy gisterand nou Mr. Daniel se verslag die voetpad was ingegee voor die afsny datum. Voetpad is nou nog nie, daar's nog geen verslag nie. Voetpad was nie aangeraak nie. Hulle het gesê, Mr. Daniel het geskryf dat ek het die eis vir voetpad ingegee. Toe kry hulle die eis binne nie kan. Maar hy het navorsing gedoen, hy het met die mense gepraat, 'n onderhoude het hy gevoer rondom voetpad. Hulle het weer toe
Meneer Jacobs, is u nog daar?
Ek gaan nog daar, ja. Ons moet weer af, ja. Hulle toe weer service providers ingestel. Die advokaat het my beïndruk. Ons het vir meer as 'n maand het ons die eise toe ingevat en afdrukke gemaak en al die. Die advokaat het dit so af en toe ingegryp, net daar kom loer en so. Ons het alles vir hom gegee. Dis nou hoeveel 'n paar jaar en die is van die ou eise die. Die kommissie, nou se laaste vergadering, meneer Wynele, toe was er nog geen verslag rondom voetpad nie. Ons sit met 'n eise kerkeis wat ons ingesit het, né? Dit is die kerk het 2 eise ook ingesit, Klipkop, Langedrif. Ek het die nommer, ek kan die nommer vir julle gee hier, so die eisnommer. Ek kry mos 'n nommer, kan ek hier sit. Die eise is nou nog nie afgehandel. Hulle sê van die vorms wat weg. Ek gaan gewoon met een kerkeis wat nie. Dit is Langedrif. Ek het gevra vir die sekretaris om die eis in te gee. Langedrif, hy het die eis ingegee. Die eise nommer is J583. Selwyn Jacobs het hom ingegee. Jan Jafta het ook 'n eis ingegee vir Langedrif, maar dit is vir die gemeenskap. Klipkop het die kerk ook, daar is ook 'n kerk gewees, die kerk is ingesit, meneer Henrico het nou 'n ongelukkige sy nommer het. Ons wag. Nou, dit was voor die afsnydatum. Dan kom ons nog van die kloof, Sinsabrug. Die kloof is nou baie van die kloof se mense toe hulle uitgesit het, weggejaag is daar, toe hulle groot brand gekom. Nee, daar is 'n eis in vir Sinsabrug. Daar is 'n eis in. Ons het 'n eis ingesit vir die kloof. Daai tyd was nog gewees by South Cape Land gewees. Toe is nog 'n kantoor hier in Johannesburg. Die eis, die kloof se eis het weggeloop. Daar is 'n eis vir Sinsabrug. Nou vra ons, maar hoekom vat ons nie daai eis? Kyk, daai tyd toe ons die eis ingesit het, toe was dit groep eise gewees. Toe verander hulle dit mos na gemeenskap eise toe. Daar is 'n eis in. Nou kom ons gou na die landboueise. Die landboueise. As 'n plek soos Klipkop goedgekeur is, en dit het die navorsing vir my gesê. Ek hoor die meneer het gepraat van nawerk. Hier is baie mense wat grond gehad het. Wat die gewerk het, was mense wat pensioen gekry het, wat het die grond het geleef het. Daar was huise as 'n wyd verspreide gebied. Nou het jy jou stuk grond. Grondwerk het jy met 'n plaas hê nie. Jy kan 'n klein boer ook wees. Die mense hier was lories wat die goed kaart toe gereed, die mense op George toe. Ons het 'n mark nog altyd, het ons nog hierso. Daarom, Mr. Daniel Jacob was besig met die onderhoude met die mense. Hy was besig met die onderhoud, hy was besig met die navorsing. En hy het ons gesê dat as jy huis op 'n betrokke plek en die eis is goedgekeur en jy dit stuk grond daar gaan, waarvan jy ook uitgeleef het, dan kan die eise. Nou, wat wil sê, ek kan maar sê eis, nou 'n landbou eis, ons het 'n eis ingesit vir Klipkop. Vir Klipkop, dan is dit die landerye, alles in. En daar was vir ons landbou eis, ons sit 'n eis vir Klipkop in. Wat wil sê, die landerye val onder Klipkop. Die ander saak is die begrafplase. Ons het moet 3 begrafplase. Jy moet briewe voor my. Wat gaan na die munisipaliteit toe? Skending van begrafplase. Jy gaan in die maak sommer dam. Deur ons 3 begrafplase wat daar lê. Nou ons het daar gaan soek, Mr. Daniel was saam met ons van die chiefs van die koning was saam met ons het daar gaan kyk. 'n begrafplaas was geskenk gewees. Niemand doen iets aan oude bome gekap. Dan lê die bome, die grafte vol en so. Ons wil hê dat ons begrafplaase, dis historiese gebiede en dis erfenisgebiede. En so maar niemand wil eintlik pa staan. Ek sit met korrespondensie so wat ons deurgestuur het. Nou net vandag by die Konkamp. Ons kom by Konkamp, dis waar ek gebly het. Soos ek vir julle sê, daar was 'n kerk gewees, die Konker. Hulle was 'n koets gewees saam met die Sulse. Dit was nie eintlik die kerk het die kaart en transport gehad. Maar die kerk kom agterna. Toe bly daar mense op hy grond, né? Maar soos ek sê, ons kon nie hy die kaart en transport gekry het. Nou die eis van die Konkamp, dit is nou 'n brandende punt. Dit is waar ons het reggekry, hulle se ontwikkeling daar begin het. Ons het dit toe reggekry wat hulle toe gestop het. Hulle nou gaan hulle ouerhuis, gaan hulle daar sit. Binne hulle, die verslag wat hulle gedoen het, binne hulle verslag, sê hulle daar was niks op baie grond nie. Daar was nie geskiedenis nie. Daar's mense dood. Daar mense kinders gemaak op baie grond. Hulle sê daar was nie dit gewees nie. Ron Martin het gewerk by die erfeniskantoor van die Kaap. Hy het ook 'n verslag. Hy het gesê daarvan en hy het by Kooi. Hy het gesê hy het 'n verslag. Hulle het hom verslag het hulle van die tafel af gegooi. Nou sê hulle daar was nie 'n eise gewees nie. Daar is nie eise nie. Dan draai hulle weer om, dan sê hulle daar was 'n eise gewees. Daarom sê die kom ons het daar wat lidmate gewees. Ek en my pa was 'n lidmaat gewees. Nee. Ons grond het daar gelê. Brak het ons grond daar gelê as 'n land. Ek sou 'n erf gekry, ek sou gebly het daar so. My pa en mense wat vir goed gewees kompenseer. Vir ons was dit goed, ons soek ons erfenis. Die Konkamp is ons erfenis. En so. Nou gaat op sommer oor langs aan hom. Was die NG kamp. Nou ons kan nou naam hoor, 'n NG kamp, die NG kerk. Het is skooljaar. By ons was die kerk en by hulle was die skool gewees. Nee? Die NG kamp toe ons nou moet trek. Daar uitgesit en weg toe, Grootbrak, rivier toe. Ons was 'n een gemeenskap eintlik gewees, een gemeenskap. Gaan na skool, hulle gaan die kerk en hulle dan die NG skool het hulle kerk gehou. Toe trek die NG mense ook, hulle kom toe. Nie almal nie. Maar wat die NG gedoen het, NG kerk, wat hulle toe gedoen het, hulle maak 'n hofsaak. Nee, al die mense trek toe hulle maak 'n hofsaak. Maar van die NG kamp mense is toe 'n Grootbrak. Het ook Grootbrak toe getrek. Nou jy kan maar sien, die NG kerk, waaronder resulteer, het ons mense terug in jaar. Hulle wen toe die hofsaak. Terselfdertyd sit hulle mense uit in artikel 4 op naby Mosselbaai. Nou bly die 'n Grootbrak weer hier. Waar kom die uitgesit hier so? Nou kom daai mense, hulle tog my herberg, hulle trek so met die mense in die NG kamp. Maar die NG kamp wen die saak, hulle bly ja. Ek kan Mr. Kennedy Bakariepio wat hy doen met die straus gewees. Om die geldigheid van die Konkamp. Ek het buite gewag, hy moet doen met toe hy uitkom toe sê, Barry, ek weet nou alles. Die Konkamp is 'n eis, die NG kamp is 'n eis. Nou, toe ons die eise ingesit het, toe die eise moet ingesit het, dit was onder druk gewees. Nee? Daai Desember man, want daar is my vrou se suster te sien. Het hulle doodgery. Ek het die eise onder druk ingesit en so. Hoekom ek vir die NG kamp, hoekom daar nie ek 'n vorm is? Daar is 'n eisers wat vir die NG kamp ingesit het. Maar ek het nie 'n groep by hoekom van die mense daar gebly. Het ons die mense wat ek die NG kamp betrek het, van hulle toe die saak deur is toe hulle weer teruggetrek. Maar die ander mense was nie so gelukkig nie, maar hoekom daar bly toe klaar mense in hulle huise wat daar gestaan het. Toe bly hulle maar aan en brak. En dan die ander probleem is, dat jy nou moet oorweeg, die is nie gesit, jy kom in Grootbrak af nie, daar was die water by ons, die water gerol met die dronk, een punt gewees, en so, jy kry nou krag, die nou maan gebly in die krag, dan gaan jy nie weer, maar ons is gesteer. Toe kom het so, van die begin van die proses af, het ons saam vergadering so, die NG kamp en die Konkamp, rondom die eise. Nee? En toe het die saak onder Daniel sy aandag gebring. Toe sê Daniel vir my, toe sê hy vir my, hy het op hier gaan na, rondom die NG kamp. Ek het briewe in die koerant geskryf, hy het die rapport, die extra rapport. Ek het die ingekant genoem. Hy sê, by al die vergaderings het hy gesien dat die ingekant, hoe vra hy, wil hy, ek sê, wil maar was hy, seker want die ingekant staan waar so en so. Maar dit as jy dan na ons is een gemeenskap, het sê, ons is hier versplinterd van mekaar. Toe sê hy, Barry, hy gaat dit die navorsing doen. Hy het die eis gekondoneer. Hy het hom gekondoneer die 1 Junie 2009 het hy eis gekondoneer. Hy sê dit was die bedoeling, hy het dit op 'n ander plek gedoen. Hy het my vandag het hy my 'n ding gegee. Hy het die verslag nog en so dat hy die eis gekondoneer het. Né? Hy sê al was hy sien ons is by een hy het hom gekondoneer. Ons hou 'n vergadering. Hou ons die 30ste Augustus 2011 van King George. Mevrou Jonita Fortuin, meneer Peter Swart, meneer Hoesnipper is daar so. Meneer Peter Swart sê dat die eis van die NG kamp is gekondoneer. En so. Ongelukkig het ons die notulen gekry nie. Ek het nou die dag die dame wat dood is 'n boek gesien. Sy het haar inskrywing, maar meneer Daniel J. Ek en hy praat, hy het my vanoggend gesê, hy het die verslag dat hy vir die NG kamp kondoneer het en so. Nou kom dit so, van die NG kamp se mense is uitbetaal. Wat toe gebeur het, toe kom ons ooreen saam met Mr. Ken Makalipi. Ons sê, laat ons nou ons vat het nou een eis. Dat wil sê die NG kamp se mense gaan nou onder die Kongkamp en onder die Saagkamp gaat hulle. Was so aanvaar gewees. Daar sê iets moet ingesit nou vir die NG kamp, dit was aanvaar. Van die NG kamp se mense het goedkeuring briewe gekry onder die Kongkamp dat hulle is goedgekeur. Van die mense is uitbetaal. Toe kom Mr. Daniel en hy sê, maar dit is nie nodig nie. Ons haal die NG kamp uit want hy gaat deur, hy's gekondoneer. Ons haal die mense almal weer uit. Ons maak 'n lys, ons het 'n lys gemaak, ons stuur hom voor, want hoekom? Hulle gaat op hulle eie as die NG kamp gaat hulle deur. So besluit is goedgekeur. En ek sê in die King George Hotel in George was het weer bevestig en so. Nou toe kom hulle, nou na tyd, nou sê hulle die NG kamp is ook die, hy sê geldig en so nie bestaan. Nee? Mense is uitbetaal van die NG kamp wanneer hy kom. Mense het briewe, ek het die bewyse hierso, dat daar staan, die NG kamp goedgekeur, persoon is nou nog uitbetaling. Ons sê vir hulle dat 'n persoon September Fortuin het aansoek gedoen. Hy het aansoek gedoen vir NG kamp. Ons sê, hoekom verander ons nie daai, hoekom verander die kommissie nie daai eis dan in 'n gemeenskap uit en so nie. Maar daar was beloof vir ons. Dieselfde geval wat in hulle Weikamp gebeur het. Wat in hulle Weikamp in Beaufort Wes. Ek sit in 'n vergadering toe kom Beaufort Wes saam met Skrik toe kom Beaufort Wes se mense daarso. Hulle sê daar's geen uitsvorm aan nie. Nou oorlede Pieter Piccolo sê daar's nie uitsvorm nie. Nee? Hy kry nie uitsvorm nie vir hulle nie. Toe sê hulle, die direkteur het gesê, ons maak 'n politieke besluit en die saak gaan deur. Ons maak 'n politieke besluit in 'n Weikamp en die eise gaan deur. Ons vra vir die kommissie, maak hier politieke besluit. Hy was al reeds gemaak gewees. Dus ek sê, dit was aangekondig die 1 Junie en dan was dit die 30ste Augustus. Nou sit die enige kampse mense. Van hulle is uitbetaal en van hulle is nie uitbetaal. Maar daar was gesê, hy is goedgekeur, hy is gekondoneer en so. Dan die volgende is ja, gepraat van die landbouw is het, dan het ek nog haar so erf 135 Kalburg. Dat is die erf wat hy sit langs die polisiestasie. Die mense alles probeer om die eis deur te kry. Ek het hoeveel briewe met geskryf het om ontwikkelaars te keer. Die allerlaaste ding nou is, die laaste ding nou is dat hulle gaat nou 'n petrolstasie hulle laat. Hulle ontken dat daar se eis ingesit het en so net. Want hulle moet voortgaan met ontwikkeling. Daar was gepraat, maar hoekom 90% het geld gevat? Hoekom die ontwikkeling? In Grootbrak was nog nooit 'n opsie werkswinkel om uit te wys wat die belangrikheid is van ontwikkeling. Eendag het ons 'n vergadering gehad, maar dit was nie, mense was nie ingelig nie. Mr. Kent Makalipie kom, ons hou 'n Kleinbrakke vergadering. Hy verduidelik ons die belangrikheid. Ongelukkig gaan hy gaan toe weg, hy werk nou by sport en rekreasie. Ons het by my huis gesit ek in die datum vir ideologie wat ons daar gesit het in my huis, het was die 23ste Desember, sit ons toe bespreek ons die mens wat ontwikkeling gaan vat toe. Daar was 'n paar mense wat ontwikkeling gaan vat. O ja, die Kaap, die Weskaap word genoem die check, dis wat die amptenare sê, want dis gou om geld te gee. Betaal hulle uit. Die ontwikkeling 5 jaar ons het daar gesit toe identifiseer ons erf 135 as ontwikkeling. Ons wil dit gevat het as 'n baken vir die grondeise. Dat ons in niks het die grond het, dat daar restaurasie, ons weet mense het geld gekry, dat daar restaurasie gewees het en so. Tarka kom hoeveel jaar in Mosselbaai? Daar is nog geen huisgebouw. Ons was weggewys van ontwikkeling. Nou is jy in 'n familie, daar is 'n eis in 'n goedgekeurde huis, ons gesê ons gaan ontwikkeling vat. Maar die ontwikkeling kom nie. Niemand kom praat met ons hier, niemand verduidelik ons hier daaroor ons COVID, ons hoor niks na. Daar is nog geen ontwikkeling nie. En die eis is die afgehandel nie. Die munisipaliteit het nou goedkeuring gegee dat daar kan 'n volstasie kom op daai grond en so. Maar ons sal verder nie, want die eis is nog nie afgehandel nie. Ons het al so ver gegaan, dus ons ook by 'n general wie wil ontwikkeling het. Kom, dan vat julle vir die eisers in en maak hulle partners. Dan die volgende punt is Sandhoogte dam. Die damse mense is al uitbetaal. Sandhoogte was 'n groot area. Ek het 'n eis in, ek het 'n eis in vir die dam. Ek het nou nog die brief wat ingegaan het in 1998. Staan daar so Sandhoogte, die dam. Nou die dam was eintlik in Sandhoogte gewees, né? Vir Kleinbrak, Plankiesdorp, het ek 'n eis ingesit. Het was eintlik 3 gebiede, Plankiesdorp, ja, het was 3 gebiede. Maar ek het toe Kleinbrak langs ingesit. Toe moet ek by eendag 'n verklaring gesit het dat ek het. Nou wat vir my snaaks is, ek het 'n aansoekvorm vir Kleinbrak Universiteit. Dieselfde geval met die NG kamp. Kleinbrak se mense is uitbetaal. Daniel sê omdat ek het genoem het, daar is op die brief wat ek nou in my besit het, wat in die leers is, wat voor 1998 staan, so plankies door Kleinbrak, maar die eisvorm in nie. Die meerheid kan goedgekeer, is goedgekeer, en die mense is uitbetaal. Sandhoogte se mense, en ek besit met die briewe hierso, het briewe gekry dat hulle is goedgekeer. Tot hierdie uur toe is hulle nog nie uitbetaal nie. Sandhoogte se mense het getrek na die nuwe gebied toe. Hulle moet toe na die nuwe gebied toe kom en so, né? Ons was haar gewees by Sandhoogte se mense, toe kom die eienaar. Ek daar vergader met die mense, die mense het in 'n dam, het hulle klere gewas en water gekry. Toe kom die eienaar raas, hy staan met 'n gun, staan hy bo, het my gedreig, so. Die verskuif toe, is goedgekeer, hulle verskuif Wolwedals toe. Sandhoogse mense verskuif saam met hulle in die projek, saam, hulle bly saam, so. Die Kloofse mense is uitbetaal. Sandhoogte se mense is nog nie uitbetaal nie. Sandhoogte se mense sit met goedkeuringsbriewe. Binne 'n vergadering, die laaste vergadering wat ons aan Hello? Ek is aan klaar.
Mr. Jacobs, if I could ask you to wrap up.
Ja,
just
ek is al klaar, ja. Ek is al klaar, ja. Sandhoogte, toe sê meneer David, maar ons moet kyk aan die wat goedkeuringsbriewe gekry het van Sandhoogte, dan moet hulle uitbetaal word en so. En nou praat ons over die wisselclaim. Die wisselclaim, en die claim is nog nie geraak en so nie. Hy is nog nie aangeraak nie, dis 'n familieclaim, nie so 'n groot familie, die Wessels. Maar daar is nog niks gedoen aan die claim nie. En ten laaste wil ek nog sê, ons het toch nooit 'n navorsingsverslag gekry nie. Navorsingsverslag van hoekom mos nie mes goedgekeur is, hoekom is jou geldige eis en so, het ons nie gekry nie. Die eisers wat afgekeur is, daar staan redes, maar ons het nie gekry nie. Baie dankie. Baie dankie, voorsitter.
Baie dankie, meneer Jacobs. Members, just to confirm as well, we will have the audio translated by language services, and we'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of the audio. But just to remind you that the points that Mr. Jacobs just made is also the points in his original petition, and those were sent to members in both Afrikaans and English. It was translated. Members, I'm now going to open up for questions. And you just have to guide me if you have any questions. Also, if there's any questions of clarity from our colleagues from the Commission, you could just use the raise your hand function. Okay, while I wait for members, Mr. Jacobs, if I could perhaps ask the section of land, the Soweto camp, that piece of land, just to correct me if I'm wrong, but that land is currently leased out by the municipality to a restaurant. If my memory is correct, the Feta Morsel is currently on that land. Mr. Jacobs?
Kan jy my hoor, meneer voorsitter?
I can hear you now.
Soweto behoort nou nog aan die munisipaliteit. Hulle hier 'n stuk grond nou uit aan die vette mossel. Ook wat ons gebruik het en so, né? Nou voel die gemeenskap, wat ons voel omgekrap, dat die persoon hier grond. Nou vra ons, waartoe gaan hy geld? Meneer, daar's meneer Maree, hy dra kennis van Soweto. Soweto, dis nog nie ding nie. Soweto moet kom na die regmatige eienaars toe. Hulle is besig om nou by Soweto is hulle besig om huise te bou. Alles het huise gebou en so. Wat eintlik hoekom ek gaan vir nou sê hoekom die mense so teen Soweto is. Ons weet dat die see behoort aan almal kan aankom. Maar die grond weg van die see af. Dit kan ons nie, dit is anders. Ons kyk dan die groot huise wat hier staan in Kletane. Maar die see is ook vir almal. Ons sê dat die kampierplek, dat hy weer, soos die munisipaliteit hom afgebreek word, wat hy weer vir almal daar wees. Maar ons sê dat die ander gedeelte van Soweto, die ander gedeelte laat hy terugkom na sy regmatige eienaars. Ek kan vir sê, 1994, met die oorgangsraad, bel iemand my, hy sê, Derek, jy moet afkom, hulle is besig om grond te verkoop. Toe verkoop hulle groot stukke gronde van Soweto, Grootbrak munisipaliteit, sonder wat 'n prosedure gevolg is. Dit was nêrens gadvertering. Hulle het aan breinpersone op grond verkoop. Meneer, kan ons op 'n kampplek wees, 'n kampplek. Dan is dit die stukkie by see, dit is net slegs kleerlinge. Dit is moet die wal, ek meen 100 meter daarvan, dit is moet nou deel van die grond slegs vir kleerlinge en so. Maar ons het nou met 'n dokument dat die erwe is verkoop, hier deel van Soweto, van Otto, as hulle in 1940 verkoop. Nou hoe kan jy 'n persoon se erfenis in 1940 verkoop? Maar jy gee nog die grond, dan sê jy slegs kleerlinge. Maar ons vind dit nooit. Maar ons weet nie hoe die mense die grond gekoop, die gekry het nie, en so nie verstaan nie. Ons weet ook dat hulle wel op Otto wou hulle eintlik omdat meneer Elite het die gewoon, hy was die burgemeester. Hulle wou slegs amper soos oranje gemaak het en so. By daai gedeelte. Ons vra dat daai 1940, dit moet ondersoek word. Hoe is hy grond verkoop? Hoe was die prosedure gewees? Daarom te vette hier met 'n stukkie van die grond hier hulle nou. Maar binne die plan wat hulle nou opstel, wat hulle nou kom, die munisipaliteit, sê hulle daar moet hulle wil eintlik nou vir die vette 'n stuk grond daar gee. Binne die ontwikkeling hoe hulle gee en so. Maar heidaglik het die munisipaliteit die kaarte, maar ons as Grootbrak, Fremesheim, Jonkersberg, beskou Soweto as ons grond. Dis ons grond hy. Ek sê weer, dis bloedgrond hier. Dis ons grond hy. En Soweto en Otto as die laaste stukkie see wat hier oop lê, weet jy, Klinkkraans, ek hoor hy is ook verkoop. En dan nou die ander geveg gaan nou wees by Bakkersdorp, by Gwynmond, daar lê 'n stukkie grond. Die ander grond kan jy by ons sien as lintontwikkeling aan mekaar. En so. Die is ook verkoop.
Dankie meneer. Mr. Smith and Dr. Alexander, if I can perhaps ask, have you received any communication from the Mossel Bay municipality in terms of the Soweto land. I'm just noting, I've got in front of me minutes of a municipal council meeting on the 25th of the 5th month, 2017, where the municipality resolved that they've made contact with the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform to ask whether any claims on this land was submitted, and they've received no response. I just want to check, did the commission receive any communication in that regard?
Chairperson, I cannot recall, because we've been in communication with this municipality on numerous occasions regarding the release of land for Taraka. But I can recall that we had a discussion, and then we informed the municipality regarding the non-compliance of Soweto. So, but whether we received formal communication, I cannot recall at this stage.
Okay, and earlier you said that that you have spoken to the municipality and they've indicated that they are open to making land available at Soweto for recreational purposes for people who were previously dispossessed of their land in that area. Do I have that right? Yeah,
as I indicated, it was like informal. I would say it was informal discussions, and then thereafter I also informed Mr. Jacobs and say maybe the best way to go will actually be to consult with the municipality. And also, and I think for the last few years, every December, the municipality, I think they still provide services because people are still using it for camping. So I think Mr. Jacobs can confirm that. And has there been any communication with the municipality with regards to Earth 135? Which one is that? Is that where they want to build the old dome? The Kalkrug claim. Yeah. So every time when we receive communication where people ask regarding claims, then we have to provide the information. So I think Mr. Jacobs also alluded to the fact that if most of the claimants decided that they want financial compensation in terms to settle their claims, so we cannot then say to somebody, you cannot develop the land, because that is actually the reason. And maybe if I can also maybe further talk to the fact that Mr. Jacobs was saying that development was never discussed as an option. There was a time there was 10 people that indicated that they are interested in land, alternative land. And during the meeting, it was indicated to them, because obviously if you're not the only claimant, there's beneficiaries. So that claimant must actually go to the rest of the beneficiaries and come with a resolution. For example, if there's 20 people or if there is maybe 15 people, then you must come with a resolution to indicate that all the beneficiaries is in agreement. And obviously, most of them were unable to do that because we need that to approach the municipality to ask for land. So one individual will indicate, I'm interested in land, but obviously cannot get buy-in from the co-claimants. And so it's not a position for the committee, it's for the individual claimants. Each and every claimant household must actually make the decision. So the committee cannot decide that's what we actually want. And if the individual claimant household decides we want financial compensation or we want development, it's their choice and not the choice of the committee. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jacobs, I see your hand. Mr. Jacobs, je mag voortgaan. Okay, Mr. Jacob seems to be on mute again. Mr. Smith, I see your hand. Yeah, Chairperson, maybe I can also address the matter of multiple claims. I think Mr. Jacobs alluded to multiple claims. So unfortunately, we cannot, even if a minister is saying in public, although I was not present in the minister in public, that somebody can, if a person have stayed for 2 years, the person can actually claim. So the only rule that we follow is the rules in terms of the Restitution Act that's actually talking for 10 years. And I agree fully with him. You can have more than one claim, but it can only be if you stayed on one area for not less than 10 years and another area for not less than 10 years. Then you will have at least 2 claims. But it cannot be that you stayed only for 2 years in a certain area and then you move on and then you will actually you will have a claim. So I just want to clarify that part. And I think the other part is in terms of the CONCOMP, where the claim has been settled, but then the other part that he was talking about the land that if they turn 21, that everybody, if they turn 21, the males will actually receive land, but you cannot compensate for somebody for something that they going to receive. They didn't receive it. If you're the owner of the property, then it becomes something else, but they were not the owners of the property. It was the intention that they're going to receive it, but they did not receive it. So during the time on the date of dispossession, so you cannot compensate somebody for something that you're going to only if it's in a will. If it's a will, it's actually something legal, but it's in this case, it was not there. It was just the intention that it's going to receive it, but it was not there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jacobs, you can go ahead. Mr. Jacobs?
It's probably muted.
Wasima, are you able to unmute Mr. Jacobs on your side?
I'm going to try from my side, just hold.
I can't from my side.
I can't mute him. I'm going to call him in quickly.
Members, are there any questions from your side at this stage?
Gee, I'm getting no answer from Mr. Jacobs' side.
Okay. I'm going to ask you again, members, are there any questions from your side? And Wasima, do we have anybody at the Cape Access Centre as well that we could perhaps contact? Member Allen,
He's
did I
going
see
to
you?
speak now.
Okay.
Just got hold of him.
Hi, Chairperson. I am covered for now. Thank you for the way this committee is running today. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just wait for Mr. Jacobs.
Sorry, Chair, it's Wayne Alexander here. Just to say that I'm struggling with connectivity sometimes. I'm not always picking up the conversation, but I obviously will, we'll get the minutes and the recording from Wasima, and that will help us respond if required. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, we'll also send you a YouTube link for where the proceedings are recorded. But I do think this meeting would have been better served if we were all in the same room, and hopefully we'll be able to get that done soon. Member Allen?
Chairperson, so sorry. I'm just thinking now, and it's probably within your notes, or I could be out of order. Will we get some remarks from the Commission in terms of how they see the way moving forward? What would be done from the Commission side in order to resolve some of the issues, etc.?
I think, Member Allen, that is entirely up to the committee. So this is the second engagement that we've had on this issue, and in line with the Western Cape Petitions Act, we will then have to follow the process outlined in the Act in terms of investigating the petition and also making recommendations. So what we will do, this is, as I said, the second engagement. My immediate recommendation after this meeting is that the committee must set up a fact-finding mission and conduct a little bit more research on our own as well, because we only have the input from Mr. Jacobs and we only have some preliminary responses from the Commission, but we'll also might need some input from the municipality, and we might need to engage with some of the other claimants, as well as to have sight of some of these research reports and to better understand the extent of the land available as well. So this is just the second part of the process. It's quite a long process still ahead. What we'll also do, and I'll ask Wasima to do this, is to make sure that Mr. Jacobs, as well as the colleagues from the Commission, has a copy of the Western Cape Petitions Act. You remember, Member Allen, from our last engagement, it was indicated that there was also communication to the Public Protector's Office, and we haven't received correspondence from the Public Protector's Office as well. Because part of what we can do in terms of the powers bestowed on this committee through the Western Cape Parliament is also to ask the Public Protector to investigate certain aspects of any petition. So there's quite a lot of information, I think, that we still need to consider.
Thank you so much for the clarity, Chair.
Thank you. Wasima, do we have Mr. Jacobs yet?
You should be ready now.
Hello, meneer.
We can hear you now, sir.
Meneer, wat ek al gesê het is dat die van die ontwikkeling, meneer David van praat. Ek sê met dat mense wat nou twee eise het, hulle het 'n opsie gesit vir die geld en die ander opsie is vir ontwikkeling en so. Daarom dis nie heeltemal so wat dan nie meer mense is nie. Ons wil graag hê dat hier moet restaurasie, moet hier uitkom uit die hele proses, moet hier uitkom en so. Dieselfde wat gebeur in dit distrik 6, moet ook hier by ons plaasvind.
Thank you, meneer. Members, I'm just going to ask final round if you have any questions or if there are any comments that the Commission would like to make in closing.
Chair, if I may, I've listened to, as I've said, unfortunately, with me losing connectivity, I've listened to the oral presentation done by Mr. Jacobs, and I've noted some of his concerns and issues. He obviously also made reference to different people, what they said or didn't say. So I've noted that some of the people, like Mr. Daniel Jacobs, is not a member of staff any longer and was a member before I arrived. But I mean, that some of the information we can still gather. But could I also ask, Chair, so that we obviously responded to the 7 questions sent to us, which was very different to some of the stuff that's now emerging. I think it will be very helpful also so that we can have a sense of what the discussion is going to be. And so that we could also, I think you would appreciate the fact that we also have those files available if required, so that we could also answer accordingly. Not that I think we haven't, but I think some of the things that came out today are very different to the 7 questions that we were asked to respond to. But thanks very much for allowing us the opportunity to share with the colleagues what we as restitution do, not only in the Western Cape, but the rest of the country. Thanks, Chair.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Chairperson. in terms of our response to the Petition Commission in the beginning, you will see that we've outlined our engagement over the years with Mr. Jacobs. A lot of the questions, so it's not new questions that's been raised and has been addressed. And also, he's also been informed certain things is not in the hands of the Commission anymore. For example, the letters where people has been informed that the claims is non-compliant. First of all, they receive a letter requesting additional information. If not, if there's no response received or the response is not adequate, then they receive a second letter, and that letter is signed by the Regional Lands Claims Commissioner. So the moment when the Regional Lands Commissioner signs the letter, so then basically the process is final. And the only way to overrule their decision is if the person is approaching the Land Claims Court. The same with the claim for Sowizia. So the non-compliance has been signed by the Regional Land Claims Commissioner. So even if there's additional information provided now by Mr. Jacobs at this stage, so only the Land Claims Court can basically overrule the decision regarding non-compliance. So I just wanted to allude to that fact so that people can actually understand there's certain things that we cannot change anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Can I ask, just as a point of information, if between you and Dr. Alexander, if you could give the committee an overview, perhaps in a PowerPoint slide, and you can just send it through to us via Wasima, of what the process is for submitting a land claim. So we can have that as reference and also make that available to people that we engage with. And then if you could also share with us the file that you have on this land claim, and we'd be very happy to share with you the petitions file that we have as well, because we'd like to include that correspondence into the file that we are legally obliged to put together of our work as well. Members, I think what I'd like to propose we do going forward is that we move on to our resolutions stage now, and then we then get in touch with both Mr. Jacobs as well as the Commission in terms of what our proposed next steps are going to be. And I hope that our next steps will be a face-to-face meeting, which I think should be possible with most things opening up. Members, are you in agreement with that? Member Syed and Member Ellen?
Yes, Chairperson.
And Member...
Thank you so much, Chair. All good.
Maseko? Thank you very much. With that, members, I also want to say thank you to the colleagues at the Mossel Bay Cape Access Centre for facilitating the participation of Mr. Jacobs today. We did ask the municipality, but they were not able to assist. So I'm very grateful to the Cape Access Centre for getting Mr. Jacobs online. Mr. Jacobs, I see your hand.
Yeah.
Nope, you are muted there again. Challenge with Microsoft Teams.
Okay. Kan jy hoor?
Kan jy weer begin?
Ek wil dit van my kant af wil ek sê dat ons is mos nou in 'n vennootskap. Ek wil vra dat u net saam met die kommissie praat. Wat ons altyd so geboelie het, wat hulle ons so boelie nie. Praat van die komitees en die eisergemeenskap. Bestaan by u meneer voorsitter dat ons was baie geboelie gewees deur die kommissie en so. Ons wil u net dan vir ons aandag gee. Dan wil ek sê baie dankie, ek is baie beïndruk deur die hele proses, so baie beïndruk. U weet, toe ek die dag gekom het, toe ek die petisie hier kom, hier vanaf kom laat 'n e-mail. Dit is 4 minute na my huis toe. Toe ek hom ge-e-mail het, toe ek by huis kom, toe ek my deur oopmaak, toe bel Weskaap Parlement met die amptenare. Toe sê hulle het nou my petisie gekry. En daarvan het hulle my elke tweede week het hulle my gebel. Dit is 'n uitstaande diens en ek wil vir julle baie dankie sê daarvoor, meneer die voorsitter.
Baie dankie meneer. Ons sal seker maak dat die kollegas in die parlement daai terugvoering kry. Baie dankie dat u saam met ons kon wees vanmiddag. Members, I'm now going to say thank you to both Dr. Alexander and Mr. Smith from the Commission, as well as Mr. Jacobs. You are welcome to leave if you'd like to. The committee will then move into the resolution stage. Members, I'm now going to ask you to, if you have any resolutions, just think about that. Wasima, do you want me to hand over to you first to note any resolutions that you've picked up?
Yes,
Okay,
Chair.
Chair, thanks very much. I'm leaving, and thanks to everybody. Ciao.
Thank you.
May I go ahead, Chair?
Yes, you may.
Okay, Chair, what I've captured thus far is Member Philander's request for land versus payment per beneficiary. We did ask for a breakdown of the land claims and the process as well as the timelines, but the Commissioner gave us per phases. The Commissioner had also informed us that they can give us a further breakdown of that if we wish. Should we ask for that?
I think we should.
Okay. Okay, another recommendation is that we do a fact-finding visit to the area and discuss with some of the petitioners as well as obtain input from the municipality. And another one is get the research report on the area. Another one is the public protector to provide us with the investigation that they did on the petition and the outcome thereof. Remember, at our last meeting, we said that we wanted Mr. Jacobs to provide us first with the information, and then afterwards we will decide whether we require the public protector to come and brief the committee. And which Mr. Jacobs forwarded us a number of emails which the committee received prior to this meeting. You also asked for an overview presentation on what are the processes for submitting a land claim, so that this can be also forwarded to whoever needs to submit land claims in future, and that the committee has it. Another one is that the land claim, yeah, that's about it, sorry.
Members, are there any other recommendations that you would like to include as well?
Covered my side, Chair. Thank you to Wasima and to yourself for fleshing that out. Thank you.
Covered also, Chairperson.
Thank you. Member Syed, any recommendations from your side or resolutions? Wasima, if I could also add that if we can get a table or an Excel spreadsheet of some kind with each of the claims, with the IRF number, the claimants, the beneficiaries of where claims were settled, the amount that they were paid, when it was monetary settlement, as well as the extent and the size of the land, and a copy of the valuation of the land, and also who the current landowner is or what the current land usage is. And if we could get copies of each of the research reports that they've done so far, and the name of the research companies that the panel, that came from the panel, as well as the terms of reference for that research company. So what was the brief that they got, and how, what the outcomes of that was, if they could provide us with that, and possibly also if they could provide us with the actual file on these petitions. And then members, I want to ask, are you okay with us putting together that fact-finding mission and combining the fact-finding mission with our outstanding visit to the Power Town community as well, because it's in the same area. Wasima?
Chair, I just need clarity on something else. Are you extending your last request forms part of Member Philander's request and then added to that?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I'm going to combine those two. And then also, if the members are in agreement with that, 2 fact-finding visits, when would you like to look at going?
I don't have the parliamentary program in front of me, but perhaps we can have a look at the parliamentary program and then choose a date that's suitable.
Okay. Sure. I'll have a look and I'll provide dates to you.
Perfect. Members, are you happy with those resolutions?
Thank you, Chairperson. All in order.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, if we could now go to the consideration and adoption of the draft minutes of the 21st of July. I'll see if I can beam that onto the screen.
I've shared it, Chair.
There we go. Thank you. So members, we'll go to page 1, which is attendance. Any changes or additions to page 1? Page 2. Any changes or additions to page 2? None. Okay, and then page 3.
Chairperson?
Yes, Member Allen?
Just to double check my attendance, I missed that one. So sorry.
Okay. You were present, if I remember correctly.
Thank you so much. All in order. I would support that we adopt.
May we have a seconder? Well, we don't really need a seconder. It's just a minute. Members, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and thank you to our guests as well as to our very capable procedural officer. Wasima, I see your hand.
Sorry, Chair, just before we leave, when would you like to have the next meeting? Do you want the next meeting to be the fact-finding visit, or do you want the public protector to first brief the committee before you go? I just need clarity on that, please. We do have another meeting on the parliamentary program, which we could utilize for that. But if the committee deems it necessary to first go out and see the to do the fact-finding visit before that presentation is done.
I think
I
we should keep that slot, and we use that slot to get feedback from the public protector, and also to check whether we've received all of the information. And then if we could also use that as an opportunity to get a refresher on the Power Town petition, which is also quite complex.
Okay.
And then we'll also invite Member Maseko to the Power Town conversation as well, because it is a human settlements issue as well.
Sure thing, Chair.
So members, is there anything else before we close the meeting? Nothing. Then again, thank you very much, Wasima, and to all of our colleagues in the IT department. And Wasima, if you could also pass on our thanks and the compliments from Mr. Jacobs to the public education and outreach team, Mr. Kwesa and an entire public engagement team for the way they've handled this as well. Members, the meeting is thus closed. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chairperson.
Chair.